It started with footsteps. Not the kind you hear in passing, the faint shuffle of a neighbor, or the creak of pipes pretending to be something else. No, these were deliberate, slow, heavy, as if someone was pacing directly above his ceiling, back and forth again and again. Ethan Wells had lived in the city long enough to know the difference between ordinary apartment noise and something else, something wrong. The problem was, according to the landlord, there wasn't supposed to be anyone living upstairs. Ethan was 21, a junior at the University of Illinois at Chicago, and like most broke students, he jumped at the chance to rent cheap housing. The building was a century-old brick complex on the south side, the kind with chipped paint, buzzing light fixtures, and radiators that hiss like snakes. His unit was on the third floor, the top floor technically. When Mr. Price, the landlord, showed him the place, he made it sound like Ethan was getting a deal of a lifetime. Quiet building, good neighbors, and no one above you. You'll sleep like a baby, he had said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. The first few nights were fine. Ethan unpacked, got settled, and even grew used to the groaning pipes and occasional scratching from mice in the walls. But on the fourth night, right around midnight, he heard them. Thump, thump, thump. Footsteps, right above his bed. At first, Ethan thought he was imagining it. He turned off his laptop, laid in the dark, and listened. The sound was unmistakable measured steps, pacing from one end of the ceiling to the other, then a pause, then back again. The strange part was the rhythm, too slow for someone moving naturally, too deliberate, almost like the footsteps were waiting. The next morning, he casually mentioned it to Mr. Price when he ran into him in the lobby. "Hey, are there storage rooms above me or something? I thought you said I was on the top floor." The landlord stiffened, his hand tightening around his keys. "You are? There's nothing above you except the roof?" "But I heard pipes," Price interrupted quickly. "Old buildings make noise. You'll get used to it." Something in his voice made Ethan drop the subject, but unease clung to him like a shadow. That night, the footsteps came again, louder. Ethan sat upright in bed, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the ceiling. He counted the steps 6 across, a pause 6 back. Always the same number, always the same rhythm. He grabbed a broomstick and jabbed it against the ceiling. The steps stopped. For a moment, there was silence so thick it made his skin crawl. Then came a new sound. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Long, dragging nails against wood. Ethan dropped the broomstick, pulse racing. He didn't sleep that night. By the end of the week, the footsteps were nightly. Midnight on the dot, like clockwork. They never came earlier, never later. Sometimes Ethan thought he heard a faint whisper with them, like a voice too low to make out. Other times, he swore he saw dust sifting down from the ceiling with each step. One night, desperation outweighed fear. He decided to go upstairs. The stairwell ended at a locked fire door, paint peeling from years of neglect. But the door wasn't the only thing keeping him out. A heavy iron chain stretched across it, padlocked in place. On the wood, just below the doorknob, the surface was shredded with deep claw marks, as if someone had tried to tear their way through with bare hands. Ethan staggered back, his stomach twisting. The scratches weren't old. The wood splinters looked fresh. Behind the door, he thought he heard breathing. Slow, steady, waiting. That night, he dreamed of the upstairs tenant. He was lying in bed, paralyzed, while something walked the ceiling above. He couldn't see it, but in his dream, he knew a man, tall and thin, face hidden in shadow, pacing, always pacing. Then the ceiling above him cracked open like rotted wood, and 2 pale hands reached down into his room. When he woke, the sheets were damp with sweat, and the ceiling above his bed had a new crack running through it. Ethan wasn't sure if it had been there before, but he was sure of one thing. He wasn't alone in this building. Ethan tried to convince himself it was all in his head. Stress, sleepless nights, too much caffeine, there had to be a rational explanation. But every time midnight came, the footsteps returned, steady as a heartbeat. He started leaving the TV on at night, volume low, hoping the noise would drown it out. It didn't. He blasted music on his laptop still, beneath the bass. The pacing continued, deliberate, patient. And then came the scratching, always after he tried to ignore it. Long, dragging scrapes across the wood, like fingernails desperate to dig their way through. Ethan wasn't paranoid. He wasn't, but he couldn't stop thinking about the claw marks he'd seen on that chain door upstairs. By Friday, his exhaustion showed. His friends at campus noticed. "Dude, you look like a zombie," his roommate Marcus said during lunch. "Yeah," Ethan muttered, stabbing his food without appetite. "The place I moved into, it's not exactly quiet." Marcus grinned. "Noisy neighbors?" Ethan hesitated. "Something like that." He didn't want to sound insane, so he left out the part about the footsteps, the claw marks, the feeling of being watched. But that night, he caught something new. At 12:03 a.m., the pacing began. Ethan lay wide-eyed in bed, covers pulled to his chin. 6 steps forward, pause, 6 steps back. Then another sound, tap, 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 from his ceiling. Like someone knocking directly above his head. His chest tightened. Slowly, with trembling fingers, he reached for his phone and opened the voice recorder. He wanted proof. He held the phone in the dark, recording every step, every knock. When he played it back the next morning, his stomach dropped. The footsteps were there. The tapping was there. But layered beneath the sound, just barely audible, was a whisper. A single word, repeated again and again. Help. That morning, Ethan confronted the landlord. He cornered Mr. Price outside the building, shoving the phone in his face. "Listen to this." "Just listen. Don't tell me it's pipes." Price paled as the audio played. His lips pressed thin, and for the first time, his confident landlord act cracked. When the whisper came through the recording, Price snatched the phone out of Ethan's hand and hit stop. "Delete that," he snapped. "What?" Ethan blinked. "Delete it. Not until you tell me what the hell is going on upstairs." Price's eyes flicked nervously toward the stairwell door. He leaned closer, voice low. "Whatever you think you're hearing, it's old noise. This building is full of echoes. That floor hasn't been touched in 10 years. Then why is it chained shut?" Ethan shot back. "Why are there claw marks on the wood?" Price's face drained of color. For a moment, Ethan thought he saw something raw in his expression fear. But then it was gone, replaced by a brittle anger. "You're imagining things," he muttered, shoving the phone back into Ethan's chest. "Stay out of places you don't belong, and delete that recording." Then he walked off without another word. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat at his desk with the lights on, staring at the ceiling, waiting. At midnight, the pacing began. This time, Ethan whispered back, "I hear you." The footsteps stopped. Silence pressed in around him, so heavy it hurt his ears. Then, slowly, something dragged across the ceiling, directly above his head like a chair being pulled across the floor. A voice followed, not faint this time, not hidden. "Let me out." Ethan stumbled back, knocking over his chair. His heart thundered in his ears. He grabbed his phone, recording again, but before he could speak, a loud bang erupted upstairs, as if something had slammed against the floor. The ceiling light flickered. Dust rained down. Ethan bolted from the apartment, racing into the hall. His footsteps echoed as he climbed the stairwell 2 steps at a time. When he reached the chain door, he froze. The padlock was gone. The chain hung loose, draped across the doorknob like a dead snake. The door itself was ajar. Ethan's breath hitched. He reached out, fingers trembling, and pushed it open. The smell hit him for stale air, dust, something faintly rotten. He clicked on his phone's flashlight and stepped inside. The upstairs hall looked identical to his own floor, but abandoned. Wallpaper peeled in long strips, the carpet was eaten with mold, and the doors lining the corridor shut tight. Except one. At the far end, a door stood slightly open. From inside came a faint, rhythmic sound. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Ethan's hand shook as he raised the light. The beam fell across the door, revealing something carved into the wood in jagged letters. Still here. The scratching stopped. Then the door at the end of the hall creaked open wider, just a sliver and a pale hand curled around the frame. Ethan ran. He didn't stop until he was back in his apartment, shoving the deadbolt closed, chest heaving, ears ringing with the echo of the voice upstairs. Let me out. Ethan barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that pale hand curling around the doorframe upstairs. He kept replaying it in his head, convincing himself it was just a trick of the light. Exhaustion, stress, but deep down, he knew what he saw, and he knew that whatever was up there, it wasn't supposed to exist. The next day, he skipped class and went straight to the Harold Washington Library downtown. He needed answers. If Mr. Price wouldn't tell him, maybe the city's records would. The building's address turned up in a collection of old Tribune articles. Most were mundane real estate transfers, complaints about maintenance, code violations. But one headline made Ethan's blood run cold. Tenant missing in mysterious circumstances, 2013. The article described a man named Daniel Kessler, age 32, who had lived in Ethan's very building. Neighbors reported strange noises from his unit, pacing at odd hours, muttering, sometimes screaming. Then, one night, he vanished. No forced entry, no signs of a struggle, just gone. Police searched the building, but found nothing. The landlord at the time, Price, refused to comment. The unit was locked and never rented again. Unit 4B, directly above Ethan's apartment. Ethan sat back in the library chair, heart hammering. He Googled deeper, pulling up forums, old threads, anything with scraps of rumor. One post, buried in a paranormal subreddit from 2016, stood out. My cousin lived in that building on 39th Street. Said the guy upstairs went crazy, scratched his walls raw. Police found claw marks like he was trying to dig his way out. Landlord sealed the apartment, said he was dangerous. Some say he never left. Ethan stared at the words until they blurred. Claw marks. Exactly what he'd seen. That night, he sat in his apartment with his laptop open, recording himself. He wanted documentation, proof. If something happened to him, at least someone would know. It's midnight, he whispered into the mic. I hear him every night. His name was Daniel Kessler. He lived upstairs. He disappeared. But he's still here. I think he wants out. The pacing began again, as if on cue. Ethan swallowed hard, eyes locked on the ceiling. 6 steps forward, pause. 6 steps back. Daniel, he said, voice trembling. What do you want? The footsteps stopped. Silence fell. Then, directly above him, you. The word was so loud, so guttural, Ethan's bones vibrated. He stumbled back from his desk, nearly knocking the laptop over. His heart felt like it might explode. From the ceiling came a new sound, not footsteps, not scratching, thud, thud, like fists pounding against the floorboards, hard enough to shake plaster from the ceiling. Dust rained down, his light fixture swayed, and the air filled with a choking smell-stale, coppery, metallic. Ethan grabbed his coat and bolted. He didn't go back for 2 days. He'd crashed on Marcus's couch, claiming his apartment had plumbing issues. But he couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the voice again. Finally, Marcus confronted him. Dude, seriously, what's going on with you? You've been jumpy as hell. Ethan hesitated. Then, against his better judgment, he told him everything. The footsteps, the chained door, the whisper, the hand. Marcus laughed at first, but when he saw Ethan's expression, the smile faltered. "You're serious?" "I have proof," Ethan insisted, opening the recording on his laptop. He hit play. The footsteps filled the speakers, the knocking, the whisper. Marcus's face drained of color. "Holy shit," Ethan leaned forward. "Come back with me, tonight, just for an hour. I need someone else to hear it." Marcus cursed under his breath, but finally nodded. "Fine, but if this is some messed up prank, I'm killing you." They went together, arriving just before midnight. Ethan's apartment was stuffy, the air heavy, like the place had been holding its breath. They sat in silence as the clock ticked past 12. And then thump, thump, Marcus's eyes widened. "No way." The footsteps paced back and forth, slow, deliberate. Ethan pointed at the ceiling. "See? Same spot, same rhythm." Marcus stood, grabbed the broom, and jabbed upward. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a long, drawn-out scratch tore across the ceiling. Marcus lowered the broom, face pale. "That's not pipes." Ethan nodded grimly. "Told you." Suddenly, the chain upstairs rattled loud, violent, as if being yanked from the other side. Both of them froze, staring at the ceiling, and then, faint but clear, the voice came again. "Let me out," Marcus swore, backing toward the door. Nope, I'm not staying here, man." But Ethan was already moving, adrenaline overriding fear. He grabbed a flashlight. "If we don't look, we'll never know." Marcus hissed, "Are you insane?" But Ethan was halfway into the stairwell, heart racing, each step echoing like a drumbeat. He felt the air grow colder as they climbed. At the top, the door to 4B stood wide open, the chain dangled loose. The padlock lay shattered on the floor. Inside, the apartment waited, dark, silent. Ethan lifted his flashlight, the beam cutting through the shadows. The living room was stripped bare, no furniture, no curtains, just cracked walls covered in deep gouges. The words carved into the plaster made Ethan's blood freeze. Every wall, every surface, the same phrase repeated over and over. "Still here." Marcus whispered, "Jesus Christ." And then something moved in the corner. A figure, thin, pale, crouched in the shadows, its face hidden, its nails clicking against the floor. It looked up and smiled. The beam of Ethan's flashlight trembled across the room, catching the figure crouched in the corner. Its skin was the color of ash, stretched too tight over sharp bones. The thing's head tilted, and when it smiled, its lips cracked like dry paper. Marcus swore under his breath, stumbling backward toward the hall. No, we're leaving." But Ethan couldn't move. He was frozen, caught in that awful grin. The figure rose slowly, impossibly tall, its joints bending with sharp cracks. Its fingernails dragged across the floor, leaving white scratches in the wood, and then it spoke. Not in a whisper this time, but in a low, guttural voice that filled the room. "You open the door." Ethan's chest tightened. He tried to speak, but only a rasp came out. "Daniel?" The figure cocked its head, a twitch running through its body. "Still." "Here." Marcus grabbed Ethan's arm. "We're getting out now." He yanked him toward the hall, but the door slammed shut with a thunderous crack, rattling the walls. The thing was between them and the exit. The apartment grew darker, as though the shadows themselves thickened, swallowing the edges of the room. Ethan's flashlight flickered. In that strabbing light, the figure seemed to jerk closer one moment across the room, the next only feet away. "Don't look at it," Marcus hissed. "Don't look," but Ethan couldn't tear his eyes away. The face. God, the face. Hollow sockets where eyes should have been. A grin too wide, stretching ear to ear, teeth sharp like broken glass, and beneath it all the sound. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The thing dragged its nails across the walls, carving into the plaster as it moved. Every stroke left behind the same two words. Still here. Ethan's breath hitched. What do you want? He whispered. The figure's head snapped toward him, bones cracking. The voice that came was a Chorus Daniels voice, layered with something deeper, older, hungrier. You. Suddenly, the floor beneath them groaned. The boards bulged upward as if something pressed from below. Splinters shot into the air, and a smell like rotting meat filled the apartment. Marcus shoved Ethan toward the door. We're breaking it down. They charged, slamming their shoulders into the wood. It didn't budge. Behind them, the figure's long arms scraped against the walls, dragging closer. Ethan's flashlight slipped from his hand, clattering across the floor. The beam landed on the figure's hands, raw, bloody, nails worn to the quick. Hands that had clawed for years. Hands that never stopped. Marcus screamed, throwing himself at the door again. It cracked, the chain rattling. Ethan pushed with everything he had. With a deafening snap, the wood split, and they tumbled into the stairwell. The door slammed shut behind them on its own. But not before Ethan heard it. That voice pressed against the other side. You can't leave me. You open the door? They didn't stop running until they were outside on the street, gasping in the cold night air. Marcus bent double, hands on his knees. What the hell was that? What the hell was that, Ethan? Ethan couldn't answer. His chest heaved, his mind spinning. He looked up at the windows of the building, dark, silent, but he knew it was still up there, waiting. The next day, Ethan packed his things. He told Mr. Price he was moving out immediately, deposit be damned. The landlord didn't argue. He didn't even look surprised. Ethan caught him, though. Just before leaving, Ethan saw Price staring at the stairwell door, the one that led up to 4B. His face was pale, his jaw tight. For just a moment, Ethan thought he saw guilt flicker there, but he said nothing. Ethan left and never came back. Weeks passed. Ethan tried to put it behind him. He ignored Marcus's texts about figuring it out. He focused on classes, on normal life, on anything that wasn't that apartment. But some nights, always around midnight, he still woke to the sound. Thump, thump, footsteps above him. Even though his new place didn't have a floor upstairs, the story should have ended there. It could have been just trauma, memory, his brain refusing to let go. But one morning, a package arrived at his new address. No return name, no explanation, just a small cardboard box. Inside was his old flashlight, the one he dropped in 4B, and carved into its plastic casing in jagged letters. Still here. End of story.